It Be. How many of you know the story of that song? Was it Paul? It was Paul, right? Paul wrote it, I believe. And look it up. Was it Paul or John? It was John. Sometimes when you get confused. It was John. When John wrote that song, a lot of people thought he was talking about the Virgin Mary. But you know who he was really talking about? Who the song was really about? His mother. She had died when he was pretty young. And she would often come to him when he was troubled. And it was at the point where the Beatles were starting to break up. And he was really wrestling, with what was going on. And that's where he felt by the pipe. And so he had a vision that his mother Mary came to him and said, just let it be. It'll all work out. It's all in divine order. What a powerful message. And what a powerful message that just happens to go with our lesson today. Isn't that funny how it works out? We plan it. Our lesson today is on the laws of compensation and non-resistance. Compensation and letting it be when we need to let it be. So let's get into that a little bit. Compensation and non-resistance. Two concepts that in Christianity are not well understood. And a lot of that has to do with Western history. Religion, particularly the religions of the West, the desert religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have done some strange things to humanity in their interpretations, use, and understanding of the teachings of their prophets and teachers. And we are trying now, through movements like Unity and New Thought and other movements around the world, to get back to those original teachings, to get rid of the dogma and the interpretations we've put on them that have held us in bondage and control for so many years and so many centuries. And so we're looking at these laws and revisiting them and asking, what did the teachers really teach? And you do understand when I say teachers, I mean Jesus, the prophets, Buddha, all of the great teachers we've had down through the ages. Today we're going to focus a little bit on some of the teachings of Jesus because he taught a lot about prosperity, about how to have that life abundant. It was the core of his mission. You could say it was his mission statement. I come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And it wasn't about worshiping him. It was about listening and applying the teachings he gave us. So let's look at some of those. But to understand where he was coming from, we have to go back to his teachers. Jesus was Jewish. He was raised in the Jewish traditions. He understood and was familiar with the teachings of the Judaic prophets. So we are going to start with an old writing from Proverbs that says this: fill your barn, but then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. A prosperity teaching, when you practice these laws, when you work in accordance with the divine, in accordance with God, your barns will be overflowing, and your vats will be overflowing. In Psalm 23, you prepare a table in the presence of my enemies and anoint my head with oil. Surely my cup overflows. There's this thing you got to listen for in there. It doesn't say surely my cup might overflow. It says surely my cup overflows right here, right now, even in the midst of life, my enemies. From Deuteronomy. The Lord will open to you his good treasury, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all of the work of your hands. From Malachi, one of my favorites. Bring the full tithe to the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need. When you do the law, when you practice the law, we are compensated. Get into the New Testament, James. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Now I want you to understand that Father of Light's line. In ancient times, they understood light was wisdom. From the Father of knowledge, from the source of our knowledge, from the source of our knowing. Darkness is dispelled. Darkness is misunderstanding. Darkness is ignorance. For Peter, 2 Peter, may grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord. Grace in those days meant abundant supply. That is what the word meant. The Aramaic word that Jesus spoke, abundant supply. All that we need to live life. Jesus said, I have come that you can have life, and all that implies abundantly. And he said other things that have been interpreted that in later editions of the Bible, later translations, if you believe in me. In the original Aramaic, it was if you believe me. If you listen to what I am saying and believe me, and believe that it's true, if it works for me, it works for you. That's what he was saying. In 1 Timothy, but if anyone does not, this one's a tough one. If anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for the members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. No pulling punches there, huh? Maybe one of the most powerful statements in there. And by the way, when it says provide for your relatives, your whole community were your relatives. Your whole entire community. And if you're not providing for them, you're worse than an unbeliever. So these were the teachings. And Jesus wasn't, in Timothy, he wasn't saying that to punish or to make somebody feel bad. He was saying, this is what you are meant to be, this is what you are meant to do, and all that you need to do that is here. But what happened? What happened was these teachings began to get changed. They began to shift. Something changed in Christianity when it became a state religion of the Roman Empire. Because it was used then not to empower people, but to subjugate them. And the whole shifting happened. And now we're working to get it back to empowering people. To doing all these things that I do, you will do it more if you believe me, like Jesus said. I kind of consider that the fall of Christianity, when the teachings of Jesus were changed and used and twisted. And what they became was a teaching that, well, you might be poor and miserable and suffering and starving and maybe a slave or abused here now, but just, hang in there and be true to God and you'll get rewarded in heaven. And those who are rich, those who are powerful, those who are subjugating you, they will be punished in the future. Now, do you think the rich and powerful really believe that? If they did, they would have changed their ways, right? No, they didn't. But this was the teaching that was used. The poor and the subservient will be rewarded in the next life, and it's a great excuse to subjugate the masses and a powerful tool. But the truth is, from spiritual teaching, that is not acceptable. It is not acceptable. When you know the law, you know that abundance is natural, that we are meant to thrive right here and right now. All of us. Every single human being. Abundance is natural, lack is unnatural. Think about the world right now. There are people starving. Some right here, some around the world. There are places where there are people starving. And yet we know there is more than enough food to feed every single solitary human being on this planet. There are people in the world who do not have clean drinking water. But we know there is an abundant supply of water. What are we doing? What are we doing? When we are creating a world where lack becomes natural instead of unnatural. am doing. Our right place is wherever we experience abundance, wherever we experience joy, wherever we experience harmony, wherever we experience love. That is our right place. And if we're not experiencing something in any one of those categories, we're out of place. Something is out of place, and we need to go to a spiritual chiropractor. I know that wasn't too good. Comedy may not be my right place. You see, our failure is to realize that we may lack in some area, not because of the way the universe operates, but because of our own miscalculations or misuse of the law. The law does not change. So what does that tell us? We must change if we are going to live a life abundant. Change is the key to all thought. Nothing happens without change. If our thinking is constructive, if our thinking is proper, we cannot help but live an abundant life. But the problem is, sometimes our thinking is not constructive. Sometimes it's not proper, and we don't even realize it. It's not that we're bad. We just sometimes forget. We forget the truth. Or in some cases, maybe nobody ever told it to us. What this means is we don't settle for what we have. It means that we are always seeking something greater. Now, as I said last week, there's a difference between seeking greater abundance and being greedy. There is a difference there. We'll talk more about that. Well, I'll talk more about it right now. The word greed comes from a Sanskrit root. And do you know what that root word meant? To steal someone's food. That's the difference between abundant prosperity consciousness and greed consciousness. Prosperity abundant consciousness says, I will live a prosperous life, and so will everyone around me, because it's part of my responsibility. And that circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more abundant a life we live. But if you're saying, I will live a prosperous life by using people, by taking from people, by preventing people from having anything, then that's greed. Understood? We don't steal other people's food. Ever. So then, as we begin to work on changing our thinking, we also begin to know that our life changes, and we have to allow our affairs to follow suit. We have to be non-resistant. I'll get more into non-resistance in a minute. But one of the ways we have to be non-resistant is to understand that we have an addiction in our culture. Oh yes, we're all addicts. They say that everybody is addicted to something. It may be alcohol, it may be drugs, it may be chocolate. Who knows? We're all addicted to something. But we also have an addiction we're not always aware of. And that is an addiction to this idea that we are at the mercy of economics, of governments, of jobs, of relationships, of all these outer conditions. Well, if we are not expressing, we are not at the mercy of those. We have control. We have the power to change. So what do we do when we realize finally that we're addicted to something? Now, I've never belonged to a 12-step group, but I have studied the 12 steps because, number one, Unity uses them a lot. Number two, and I'm talking about the 12 steps of AA, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Number two, the 12 steps work for everything. They didn't actually originate in AA, I found out. Bill Williams took them and used them in his way of getting sober. But they actually go back, way back in history. So we're going to look at it, because they work to change our thinking. So let's pretend we are here at a stinking thinking group. Stinking thinkers anonymous. Because we have bought into this, we're addicted to these ideas that we may not be worthy, that we are lacking something, that we may not be able to have total health, or total joy, or total love, whatever it is. So the first step we have have to do is realize that we are addicted. We are addicted to our culture, is what we're really addicted to. We are addicted to the stories that we have been told down through generation to generation to generation that every great teacher said was not true. So, let's look at this. Our first step. Admit that we are powerless over our addiction and that our life has become unmanageable. Now that's a tough one for unity people, isn't it? To say, I am powerless over my addiction. Well, if you are not living the life you want to live, the life that you dream of living, then yeah, you are powerless over it in the moment. It's the little me that is powerless, not the good big me, not the me that is the Spirit of God. The little me is powerless over it. Yeah, it is. And the little me knows that I can't handle living the way I'm living anymore. How many of you have ever been in a place where it's like, maybe you've been dealing with the illness, I just can't take this anymore. Or maybe you haven't been able to find the job you want, or the partner you want, or the home you want. And it's just like, I can't handle this anymore. That's that step. To admit it, yeah, okay, you can. To be non-resistant, to say, okay, I need to open up, I need to change, I need to grow. That's that first step. The second step is to understand that there is a greater power. And I believe in AA, they say you turn to the God of your understanding. Well, in unity, we know that that greater power is the Christ's presence in each and every one of us. And that when we get out of our heads and get out of being focused on out there and instead turn within, we find that greater power has been right here the whole time. And there is a greater power that can flow through us, that we can open ourselves up to, that will heal us, that will take us to that next step, which is, in this case, in the case of the 12 steps, turn our life over to God. That's a tough one, isn't it? Oh, we say it all the time in unity. Oh, I turn my life over to God. Let go and let God. I don't know about you. I'm a Taurus. I don't like to let go of control. It's hard. And because our spirit, that Christ within us, that we are, knows just how powerful and how talented we are, it tells us to step off the edge. To take that leap. It tells us to do something that our ego self, the little me, says, that's going to hurt. That's going to leave a mark. Spirit says, no, take the leap. And so, yeah, we sometimes are reluctant to turn it over to God. Let go and let God is not a cop-out. Sometimes we use it that way. You know, let God. No, let go and let God in here do something. Do the work. Step 4 is even harder. Each step gets harder and harder. Step 4 is take a thorough, honest, moral inventory. I gotta look inside. Oh no. Yes. Look within and say, okay, what is it in my consciousness that is holding me back from all that I can be? What is it? It might be fear. It might be the messages you received growing up. It might be cultural messages and stories. Cultural stories can be powerful in either a good or a negative way. It might be just because you tried something one time and didn't succeed the first time, or even the second time, or even the third time. I remember reading one time that J.K. Rowling, with her first copy of Harry Potter, was turned down by 122 publishers. I had given up by that time. She did not. Oh, step 5. Like I said, they get harder and harder all the time. Step 5, confession. Confession. Now, we don't do confession, with the booth and all of that. I don't maybe go out and do Hail Marys or anything like that. But what is confession? Well, confession is not about punishment. Confession is not about judgment. Confession is about being aware. Being aware. So confession might be, yeah, I've tried to give up smoking how many times? And I just haven't been able to do it. That is true. That is true. I know I have a guy I knew years ago who lived down in Fayetteville, I believe, who had tried everything to give up smoking. He had tried hypnosis, acupuncture, the patches, you know, he had patches all over himself. He tried everything for years to give up smoking. Could not do it. And one day, in meditation, something came to him. And he heard a voice say, "Stop trying to quit. Stop it. You know you love smoking. Embrace it." He thought, well, that sounds weird. But he was wise by this time. And he said, okay, I'm going to do it. I love smoking. I love the smell of the smoke. I love the way the ashes fall all over the table. I love the little holes in my clothes from the hot ashes. I love everything about smoking. He started working with that. And one day, just 3 weeks later, he realized that without even thinking about it, he had gone the whole day without having a cigarette. And then he went another day, and another day, and another day. And after 10 years of not smoking, he wrote a book about it. Confession is about being aware of the truth. Asking God for help is about being aware of the truth. Now, how do we do that? Of course, we do it through prayer and meditation. And then, believe it or not, prayer is one of the 12 steps. Use prayer. In unity, we use affirmative prayer. We affirm what it is we want to manifest in our lives. And then another hard one. Take personal responsibility. Not responsibility for what you may have done. That comes a little later. But responsibility for changing. You go within in prayer and you get the message like he did. Got the message and embrace it. And then you have to take responsibility to do it, because I'm sure there was a part of his consciousness that was going, that's stupid, you're trying to quit, and now Spirit tells you to embrace it? You know it's not good for you. I'm sure he had that argument going on in his head. But he took the responsibility that, okay, I got this message in Spirit. I will act upon it. I will take the steps. Take personal responsibility. Don't make other people responsible for your choices. You take personal responsibility. And that was step 8. Step 9, make amends where necessary. If you've done something in your life that has harmed another, try to make amends. If you can't do it personally to them, do it spiritually. If they've passed on, or you no longer have contact with them, or they just won't see you because of what you did, sometimes that happens. But make amends. But there's another person we forget about when it comes to making amends. Who is it? Ourselves. You know, this step, it really is about be gentle. Be forgiving. We can forgive other people pretty easy, but how hard is it to forgive ourselves? For what we have thought, for how we've lived, what we have believed, even those things that really aren't all that big a deal sometimes. It's hard to forgive ourselves. So make amends. So those are the first 9 steps. And they are about seeing your truth. They're about getting a clear picture of where we are, where we want to go, and what is in the way. That's really what it's about. The last 3 steps, though, are about doing. They're about doing the work. So the step number 10 is knowing that you are in control of your thinking. Oh, actually, thoughts, again, another hard one. And we all do it. We all have the thoughts. But what if? Get off your butts. I had a teacher tell me that one time. Get off your butts. And she said, stop saying, but what if? I said, but what if? You know, I had to do it. Take control of your thinking. Change from that negative self-talk to the positive self-talk. That's what our affirmations do. They teach us to use positive self-talk. So, our friend who was the smoker, can't quit smoking. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I can quit smoking. You're right. But you're saying I can quit smoking. Or I will quit smoking. You're right. When? I am not a smoker. Or even better, I breathe only clean, fresh air. That's how we change our thinking. And sometimes there's steps involved. I am prosperous. We don't say, I will be prosperous. I will be prosperous in it. I am prosperous right here, right now. Whatever I need is in Him, even if I do not see it. It's there. All I have to do is figure out what vessel I'm going to put it in, like the widow. All of that oil was right there the whole time that we talked about a few weeks ago. All she had to do was be aware that she needed something to receive it with. And that's what we're about, is learning how to receive the truth. Learning how to see the abundance that is all around us. Learning how to receive that spiritual essence that is creation. So we change the way we talk. We change the way we think. We think truth thoughts. It doesn't matter what the economy is doing. It doesn't matter who's in government. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what your upbringing was. The truth is, you are a child of God, created in the image and likeness of God, and if you are not living that, then you are saying, God is flawed. There's a lot of personal responsibility and hard truths that go with this. And number 11 is integrate what you have learned into your daily life. Live it. Live it. Act it. It's real out there already. Why not start living it? Why not start being it? And the final step in AA is called spiritual awakening. In Unity, we say, become a teacher. I don't have to formally become a teacher, but spread the word. You know, I often wonder how much Jesus went through before he started teaching. You know, he was roughly 30 years old, which in those days was pretty old. If you believe in past lives, how many lives did it take him to get to that point? What did he learn? Who did he talk to? What did he study? And when he got it, he said, I cannot hold this to myself. We have such talented people here with music. What good would that music be if they never shared it? I heard, it's like Perlman or one of those say one time that talents are negative until you use them. Talents are negative until you use them. Because ultimately it's only when we cease to recognize a condition that we cease to attract it. If we're recognizing anything less than what we want, we're going to attract it. If we're recognizing more than what we are in the moment, we are going to attract that too. Which brings us to the law of non-resistance. Resistance is futile. Any Trekkies out there? You know, Lord, resistance is futile. They were right. They were right about that. They didn't understand how they were right about that, but they were. It is futile. And yet it's our go-to response about everything we face in life that requires change, that requires a little discomfort, that requires stretching. I'm going to resist that. Think about everything we have ever resisted. How well have we done with that? I've shared this before, but we have newer people that have never heard me say this, so I get to do it again. If it bores you, just tune it out. In my lifetime, I'm 62, almost 62 years old. We have fought numerous wars against other people. How well has that worked? We have declared war on drugs. We have declared war on hunger. We have declared war on poverty. We have declared war on illiteracy. How well does war work? War is resistance. What we resist persists. Harmony cannot come out of disharmony. Peace cannot come out of discord. That's why Jesus said, do not resist evil. He wasn't talking about, a devil with pointy horns or anything. He was saying, do not resist. Instead, embrace. Embrace. It's a powerful idea. A study was done many years ago, back in the days before air conditioning and stuff. And they started studying businesses, retail businesses, stores, things like that. And looked at what are some of the factors that allow one store to succeed beyond their wildest dreams and the store selling the same products at the same price right next door to fail. One of the things they discovered was that if there was a door on the store and not a door on the other one, guess which one people went into? The one with the least resistance. And they would walk through the open. Now that was in the days before automatic doors, obviously. But still, we were down in, I think it was San Antonio a couple of years ago, and I realized that we were walking into all the shops that had their doors standing open. And some of the ones that didn't, just walked down by. Life, energy, always seeks the path of least resistance. So if we want more love, if we want more peace, if we want more prosperity, if we want more health, it seeks the path of least resistance. Study the paths of animals in the wilderness when they're looking for water. They take the path of least resistance. There's a film that I don't know doubt if anybody's ever seen it. It wasn't big in the United States, it was big in Europe, called The Silent Flute. Probably one of the best films about non-resistance I've ever seen in my life. And don't watch it with your children, it's not a kid's movie. But it's a movie about this guy who wants to get the book of knowledge. There's a book of knowledge. It tells him everything you need to know about the universe and how it works. And so he enters this thing where he has to fight combat and martial arts and all that kind of stuff to be worthy to go on the quest for it. And he gets disqualified when he decides, well, I'm going to go on the quest anyway. We're getting advice. He goes on the quest anyway. And he goes through all these trials. He fights, gets in all these fights, and has to battle his way and walk through burning deserts and scorching sun. And he fights howling chimpanzees. And then he has to fight this dark jaguar-like figure. And he meets this kind of crazy, goofy teacher along the way who kind of helps him, gives him advice every now and then that he doesn't want, he doesn't take. But it's good advice. And he finally gets to the island where the book of knowledge is. And he walks in, and the monks greet him, and they feed him, they clothe him with the most luxurious clothing, they give him drink and let him rest, and it's all peaceful and beautiful, and there's flowers and everything. And after he's rested and everything, he's sitting down with the head monk, and they're sitting there talking and everything. And finally he looks at the monk and he says, "Do we fight at dawn?" And the monk says, "Do we have to?" And he says, "Well, I came here to get the book of knowledge. We have to fight for it." And the monk says, "No, you don't. The book of knowledge is right out there. You can go look at it anytime you want." And he says, you mean I didn't have to do all that to get here? I didn't have to go through all that?" And the monk said, "That was your choice. That's what you've been told, so you believed it. There are other people who just walk here, like it's a walk in the park." And so he goes out up in the island, and there's this beautiful scene where he opens the book, and you do get to see inside the book, and I will not tell you what's in the book. And he starts laughing. And then he goes out and becomes a teacher. But what a powerful lesson on non-resistance. And it turns out, by the way, all those things he was fighting, where were they? In fact, many of the demons and monkeys and jaguars and cloth were actually the same actor. So it's about not resisting our good, embracing the journey, and knowing it doesn't have to be that hard. We choose whether we make it hard or not. We choose whether we accept it or not. And the other way we resist sometimes our good is when we say, oh, I'm not worthy. Somebody does something nice for us, and we say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Do you know what happens when you do that? This was a hard lesson for me to learn. If somebody offers to do something good for me, and I don't let them, I'm taking away their opportunity to give. I'm being selfish. When I realized that, my life changed. Because I got to see people model giving. And when they did it, then I would do it. Part of non-resistance is loving your enemies. Now, on the surface, we think that's really easy. Love your enemies. Love those people that make you mad, that push your buttons, that, think differently or look differently or smell differently than you do. The enemy we really need to love is in here. It's who we are. It's okay. It's our inner child. And we love our children, including our inner child. And so we need to learn to love that too. I'm always reminded of the Beatitude. Remember, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And at one point in my moment, I thought, oh my God, the earth's kind of a mess. I wouldn't want to inherit that. But when I really understood what this said in the original Aramaic, because that's kind of a bad translation of what Jesus said. What it said in the original Aramaic, putting it into modern English, are blessed are the non-resistant, for they shall have all that they desire. Blessed are the earth represents substance. It represents manifest good that is all around us, waiting for us to accept it. Blessed are you who do not resist life in any way, shape, or form. And finally he said, it is the Creator's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, for you are a child of God. So let go, open up, and accept your birthright, because you are worthy.